Hello, everyone. As I am going deeper into my study on what the future holds for all of us and how to upskill for what's coming, I'm thrilled to have with us Anita Dongre, who has founded the House of Anita Dongre in 1995 with simply two sewing machines and the support of her family. Over the decades, her contemporary sensibility, deep understanding of the Indian customer, and her affinity for indigenous crafts have shaped the Anita Dongre aesthetic. She's a vegan who is deeply committed to sustainability, animal welfare, and women empowerment. She gives her time and energy to promoting awareness about the issues she truly believes in. A role model for me personally, someone I look up to very much, and for millions of women worldwide, a woman with both an innate and external sense of beauty. I'm thrilled to present Anita Dongre. Anita Dongre, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Vibha, for that very, very kind introduction.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All rings true. So, Anita ji, as we start this conversation,
Just say Anita, Vibha, please.
okay, I'll call you Anita. Fine.
Drop the G.
Okay, cool. So as we talk about, this, we started talking about this book and we said we're going to write a book about the future. And people said, why do you talk about the future? Why the future? Why is it even important? Why is it even relevant? So from your vantage point as a leading designer, why do you think about the future?
Oh, the future is important. One should be working towards the future. I mean, one should be obviously enjoying the present with an eye on the future because the future is important. That's the future you're leaving for your next generation. So it's important that we think of the future.
Okay, so you're saying it's you're planning for posterity. You're thinking about the next coming generations and saying, okay, we need to think about the future from a generation
Absolutely.
perspective. Okay,
Absolutely.
and in terms of design and in terms of like when you think about sort of every time I as an outsider to the fashion world, it seems like they're always trying to predict trends, what's going to be in vogue in the next 6 months or a year. How far ahead do you guys think and how far ahead do you plan in fashion?
A year ahead.
A year
In
ahead.
the Western, I think in the Western market, there are some companies who are larger companies. The large companies have to work probably 2 years ahead.
Mhm.
I consider ourselves a small company, so we work a year ahead.
Okay, and
So you start planning your fabrics and all for 1 year ahead. So because fabric creation takes quite a few months, about 3 to 4 months. Then sampling takes another 4 to 5 months, and production takes 4 to 5 months. So about actually more than a year. We plan almost 15 months ahead. There are companies who plan 2 years, 2.5 years ahead.
okay, so you're looking into the future today as you plan your lines, as you plan your business going forward.
Yes, yes.
How do you predict future trends? How do you keep a pulse on consumer trends?
That's an amazing question. I think fashion and style is a reflection of what is happening around you. You know, the changes in society, the changes in our mindsets, the changes in what's happening in culture. So I think there are a lot of forecast sites that we have that we subscribe to, which are great for global. For if you're selling globally, I think India is a very unique market of its own. Yes, it is influenced by global trends, but it also has its own
Hmm.
forecast webs. So there are global forecast websites that we subscribe to, of course. But I think India is so unique, though India is influenced by certain trends that happen globally. I love the fact that Indian fashion has its own Indian fashion. You know, there are the Indian fashion has its own influences, its own trends,
Sensibilities.
and its own sensibilities. We have our own culture, which is so strong, and I love that. So if I'm designing for Global Desi has its own Indian trends, that one, and it reflects Indian culture. I think it's just keeping a really keen eye on what's happening around you. And I think just reflecting what women in the country want to wear. And that changes over a few years. So I find that the most exciting part of fashion.
Like
The
trying to keep a
newness,
pulse. Hmm.
yeah, the excitement of going in and creating something new, because that's what fashion is all about.
Okay, so it keeps you fresh. You're constantly trying to figure out what's the next trend,
Yes, yes,
and you're doing
yes.
that through observation. You're doing it through an understanding of the culture.
Yeah, and then it's also something from within. I think it's intrinsically what you feel as a designer, what you want to do. So you might be reflecting what's happening around you, but ultimately what you say in the design is what you feel within you. I think it's so emotional and it's so internal in that sense. It's an expression of what you want to say through fashion.
Okay, that's beautifully framed. Okay, it's not just the external world, it's what you're sort of experiencing within you that you want to
Yes, yes.
in your designs. Do you see a difference between future forecasts and trends globally versus India? Are they different?
So, you know, today the Indian woman is wearing Western clothing and she's very influenced by international brands. I mean, you have international brands who are selling right here in India now. Today it's an open market and online, and an Indian customer has access to fashion all across the world. So then Western trends, definitely the Indian woman is affected by, you know, what is being worn in London, New York.
Hmm.
20 years ago, it was very difficult. There was, you know, 25, 30 years ago, there was no internet, there was no social media. Today, somebody fashionable today, somebody in Bombay knows exactly what stylish people are wearing all over the world. So the
Hmm.
trends come to India so much more quicker, like within few days, within few weeks. Plus, you have the global brands here.
Hmm.
So the trend catches on globally very well for Western fashion. But I
Hmm.
love the fact that we have our own Indian fashion and we have our own Indian clothing. And I think that's so unique
Okay.
to our country.
But you're saying with globalization, more technology, social media influences, more and more the fashion is sort of seeping through the borders, and
Yeah.
you're seeing these influences sort of start coming through very early on. Okay, now as you're designing, as you're so let's because you do two things, right? You're designing and then you run a very large and successful business as well, set up both here in India and globally. As you think about the future, what are you seeing as factors influence? And we can talk about both separately. What are you seeing as factors influencing fashion? Are you seeing sort of trends in sustainability coming through? There are all these like technology-based outfits that change according to the weather, and like there's all this crazy stuff happening, right? So, what are you seeing really coming through?
I think immediately right now, the biggest trend that's coming through and a trend that I'm really happy about and a trend that I wanted to go super viral with everybody is most companies and brands are starting to use their materials and processes more responsibly.
Mm.
Today the path that we are on, there are so many companies because the customer is demanding it, is are looking for more fabrics that are more that are easier on the planet. Nothing can be really 100% sustainable, but just even replacing, let's say, a polyester which is not biodegradable at all with a biodegradable fabric like rayon, viscose, again, which is made from regenerated forests. So everywhere the search is on for people to start using more sustainable materials, more sustainable processes, transparency in who the kind of labor that's making your clothes. So I think customers are demanding this transparency, and this is a trend that I'm really happy is a trend. And I hope this trend just snowballs and grows into something bigger where everybody then starts behaving very responsibly towards the manufacturing process of fashion.
Okay, so are you seeing this coming? Are you seeing the designer community saying, hey, we're going to now start becoming responsible designers and put out fashion like this? Are you seeing this as a pull factor from the consumer and the consumer walking into the store and saying, hey, is your fabric sustainable? Are your processes sustainable? Which way is it coming through?
I think the real change will come only if the consumer demands it, to be honest. The
Hmm.
more demanding the consumer gets, the more the change will be faster. So today I speak to everybody out there, to anyone who's watching this podcast, become a demanding consumer, ask questions,
Hmm.
buy what is right, because luckily today's young consumer is very aware of, and should study up and be aware of what am I buying, why am I buying it, is this company manufacturing responsibly? They should question their choices. And I think the change will only come more demanding the customer gets, because otherwise the change is going to be very slow.
Hmm. Are you seeing it now? Are you seeing that happening?
I'm seeing it the beginning of this trend. It's very, very small right now. It's minuscule. It's almost negligible. It has to snowball into something much, much bigger. I'm
Okay.
hoping the next decade or the next 2 decades it brings about huge change. But right now it's too small. It needs to
Okay.
get
So there's a
larger.
recency of this, but you see this snowballing hopefully in the future.
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about sustainable fabrics and the the cost benefit analysis of these? Is there a premium you have to pay to procure sustainable fabrics? How does the commercial side of sustainability work?
There's definitely a premium you pay. Now, let's say there are two mills. There's a mill called A and there's a mill called B, right? And there's a mill that's producing, let's say, viscose. Viscose is made. It's a beautiful fabric, soft. The byproducts are modal, tensile. They are beautiful qualities of viscose that you can make. They're soft on the skin, they're breathable, they're biodegradable. Now, let's say there's a mill that's making this fabric in a responsible manner. You know, it comes from trees, they're regrowing the trees wherever they cut the trees. The processes while making the fabric, they make sure there's no pollution around the factory. The water that they are using to produce the fabric is treated and then put back into the river. Their cost is definitely going to be 10, 15, 20% higher than say another mill, let's say mill B, who is taking shortcuts, who's not ensuring that the wood, where the pulp that comes from the forest is not replanted, the water that's used is polluted, and then surrounds the area with just pollutes their immediate area. So obviously, as a manufacturer, you got to support mill A because mill A is doing it right, and mill A is going to cost you a little bit more. So there is a definite price that the consumer should be paying for more sustainable fabric, but the customer should realize this and do what is the correct thing to do, because just buying cheap is not the solution. And then what I would really advocate to consumers today is to buy quality but buy less. You
Mm-hmm.
don't really need to own that many clothes, to be honest. All
Mm-hmm.
of us, all of us tend to buy too many clothes. And better than buying poor quality clothes made in a haste, which you discard every few months, it's better to invest every season in a couple of good quality pieces that will last you longer. And you're doing your good for the environment. You're also supporting the manufacturers or the makers who are being planet friendly. So
Okay.
these are really small issues, but they make such a big impact and such a big difference.
Okay, I think the simplest solution to
And
sustainability,
then the most sustainable approach, of course, is buying secondhand,
buying secondhand. Yes.
buying reused clothing. That's You can't be more sustainable than that. But even if you have to buy new, then you ensure that you've bought something that's responsibly made.
Okay.
But secondhand is your number one choice.
Second as your number one choice, buy less and then be demanding. Be demanding. Ask the manufacturers, ask the designers, where does this come from? Who is manufacturing it? What kind of fabric have you used?
Or then companies who are working towards social empowerment, who are working with women artisans. There are so many factors. It could be environmentally sustainable, it could be socially sustainable. So at least if one of the boxes is ticked when you buy that fashion piece, you're not going to be you're doing your good, you're doing your bit.
You're doing your little bit. Okay. What about technology? You've been in the field for a very long time. Are you seeing advancements in technology in terms of manufacturing process? Are you seeing technology come into design with AI? Are you beginning to see the advent of AI when you're designing or your teams are designing? What is the technology influence?
I think the last few years has been a great advancement. I think material innovation is the future, and material innovation is what the industry needs today. Today, let's say, for example, I just introduced a line of bags. So I don't use leather in the company. So in Anita Dongre, I never had a line of bags that were biodegradable. I didn't want to use animal leather.
Hmm.
I finally found a company they created a product called Medium in USA. Right now, I'm partnering with another company in India. There are so many companies today who are working towards creating alternates to leather. And there's some exciting projects happening. There's leather being created from cactus waste, pineapple waste, apple waste. And
Hmm.
this is amazing because food waste is being used to produce leather, which is biodegradable. My dream is to see animal leather replaced all over the world because the leather industry is huge. It's a very, not only is it a cruel industry, not only does it advocate animal cruelty in a large way, but it also is detrimental to the environment. Processing of leather is really damaging to the environment. It's damaging to the human beings who work with processing leather. So today, to see so many companies come up all over the world, there are a lot of exciting projects that are happening, and today the materials are getting better and better and better. And I think the next 10 years we'll see huge progress in this sector at least. And I think today there are lots of companies even just working on creating better fibers, but fabrics that could take less water. Today, there's a lot of development happening in denim. A typical denim jeans takes gallons of water to process. So there are zero water denim jeans that are being manufactured. So I think in every industry there's a lot of progress, and that's the way forward. Or
Hmm.
taking clothing, which is again functional clothing. For example, today if you are in a minus 20 weathers, up north, you've got to wear layers and layers and layers. But what if you could just wear one layer that could just keep you warm?
Hmm.
So clothing that's just that's more functional, that really works for what we want. There's a lot of progress in happening.
Okay, so definitely it sounds like there's a lot of progress in the manufacturing processes.
Yeah, there are some great minds doing some great work.
Great minds doing great work. Okay.
And there's also about, there's a lot of progress in creating zero waste clothing. There are companies now where you just take one yarn and you circular knit a garment where there's no wastage at all.
Hmm.
Today, typically, when a garment is cut, about 30 to 40% of the fabric goes into waste. Of course, there are ways to reuse that waste, but what if you created a garment? What if you created at the onset a zero waste garment? So
Hmm.
technology can be used for so much of good in fashion.
Okay, okay, terrific. Okay, so it sounds very much like there is a consciousness, there is a movement, and there is enough people in the ecosystem trying to work towards
Yeah,
sustainability.
there are a lot of passionate people who are working day and night on their dreams, and we as a company are always trying to stay in touch, reading up about what's happening, staying in touch with these entrepreneurs, and helping them in their journey, and supporting them by wanting to use their fabrics. It has just begun, and I just think again this has a long way to go.
Long way to go. Okay, terrific. Are you using AI? Are you using AI in design? Are you using AI at work? Are you using AI in your sales, in your chatbots, in your stores? Are you seeing the influence of AI coming through?
We are studying AI, of course, like anyone else should be. We're not yet using it in any of our work. We've just got a software now to, create. We create all our prints in house. But I still feel we are still at a stage where I feel the human touch is important, the human mind is important. So we're not really technically right now still using AI, but there's a lot of progress happening in AI. And whether it's my writers who are writing copy, they might be taking the help of AI, but ultimately it's their personal voice, the brand voice that comes through. So not really to that extent that it's made a huge impact. Everything is still in our company, hand done,
Mhm.
very, very person driven, very, 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 very hand done. And like I said, each person who works there is an artist, and
Okay.
we are celebrating that.
It's still very innate. It's still coming from
Yeah.
within. It's still coming from the designers. But you've seen AI. You've seen what it's doing. You've seen what it's able to do. And
Mm,
as we're talking about the nascency of other fields, it's also in its very early stages, right?
absolutely.
Another year or two, and there's the speed at with which it's getting trained. Where do you see this shifting design when you can now have a machine recreate designs basis so many designs that they're able to feed into the system? You now have a designer on hand who has now seen more than the human mind is capable of seeing in 5 lifetimes, because they're just feeding in all these things. So do you see this as a fundamental shift? Do you see this as a, I don't want to call it a threat because it depends on how well you adapt to it. But do you see this shifting design?
I see it as a tool that we could use to do things better and maybe quicker, but I don't see AI in design replacing the human at all.
You
Because
don't see it
fashion, no,
replacing.
I don't see it replacing the human. I see it as a tool that, of course, can be used to do things better, like I said, maybe faster. But I still see a human designing for the label, for the fashion
The
house. I
human
still see the
design.
human touch, yes.
You don't see brands emerging that are like AI generated designer brands where it's
I
like,
don't know, at the pace that AI is really growing, Vibha is growing at a phenomenal pace. And I think what we've seen growth in the last 50 years will probably happen in the next 10 years because the pace has just picked up so much.
mhm.
Sitting here today, I'm not for a high fashion company do I see us ever using AI for design. Maybe for a very, very mass market brand, maybe like uniforms or something that's created in huge bulk, AI could play a role, but not in what we do.
Okay,
What we
okay,
do is art, and
it's an
art
art.
is it comes from within, and it's a very human expression, which an AI can't do.
So it sounds like it'll almost become an advantage to say, hey, we're not AI generated, we're not succumbing to AI. It's all
Yeah.
human.
Like I said, AI is great for designs which are mass produced,
Mm.
but not
Okay,
what we do, not what our fashion house does, where it celebrates the artisan and it celebrates, like I said, it's an artistic expression.
okay, okay. So you still think see the human being at this as a sort of center of supremacy, and the AI
Absolutely, can never be replaced, can never be replaced,
can never be
and should never be replaced also.
okay, okay. Are you seeing, in the stores, there are people talking about humanoids, right? Like basically robots who function like humans. Do you see those coming into the stores? Do you see, a much more technologically advanced store in the next 5, 7 years? Or do you still feel it'll be sort of human touch, human experience, in the selling
I
process?
still think it's human touch, human experience. Today, a computer or a robot can probably go pick up a size from the storeroom and bring it, but then, advising you what to buy, you trying on the outfit. I still think fashion for me is very, very personal, very touch feel. The whole experience of going to a store, trying on a garment, it's all about emotion, it's about how you feel. For me, even design is an emotion. For me, the whole process of design is such an emotional process. So for me, clothing is also emotional. You wear a garment, it's about how you feel when you wear it. There are certain things that might look great, but when you wear them, you feel wonderful, you move better, you feel more confident. So I'm might be a little old fashioned. Like I said, the touch feel that can never be replaced by a human person attending to you in the store. Yes, maybe your billing can be done by a robo. Yes, maybe the robo can bring a size from the storeroom and that's it.
Hmm. Okay, so it seems like more sort of sterile functioning, you see, maybe can be replaced.
Like, yeah, I think there has to be a middle path.
Okay, okay. But the actual human exchange of like advising what's working, what's not
Yeah, has
working,
to be there.
you feel like there has to still be a human touch in the stores.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay. And they're talking about this trend of hyper personalization. It seems to be everywhere in fashion. It's saying it's going to get hyper personalized. You can, literally human beings are now going to be so much in control. The way we are on Netflix right now, it sort of hyper personalizes your suggestion list. It knows what you want. Instagram does it. My feed is showing me exactly what I'm watching. They're talking about hyper personalization in fashion, where consumer will say, "Hey, I want." Whatever belts, this kind of sleeve, this kind of collar, and the trend is going to move to that because AI now knows what you want, and then the designers are going to respond to that. Do you see that as a trend coming
I
through?
think that's a cool trend because it ultimately makes your life easier because if there's a certain silhouette or style that works for you, with so much that's available in everywhere around, if there is if there's a bot or there's a computer that can help you sort out that, Vibha, this is what you like and this brand has this silhouette for you, definitely makes your life easier, then I think that's a great trend. And for designers also to cater to customers who want personalization, I think is also a great trend because it's about you being comfortable in this, and if you want something and you want it personalized, you should be able to get that faster and quicker. So
Okay.
I think that's a great trend.
You see that as a cool trend.
Yeah.
But do you see sort of on demand fashion coming through where you walk into a store and you sort of you create what you want, and then you press a button, and then it's basically designed as per your requirement in the store experience, and they say, okay, it will be shipped in the next week or 2 weeks or whatever, you'll have this garment. Do you see that kind of hyper specialization coming through?
I see that in basics, like if there's a men's shirt, you can say, I want this collar and I want this scarf for a very, very basic item, but
Hmm.
not really in fashion.
You don't see that in
In
hyper.
fashion, the designer knows better what cut and silhouette that, because you want something new. But if you're wearing a very basic garment, then it works. So it works for basics.
It works for
It
base.
works like for a basic t-shirt. You want a basic half sleeve t-shirt and you put in your request saying that I want 6 round neck half sleeves white t-shirts and they get produced for you. That is also more sustainable so that it's made specially for you. It's not stock that's just lying there,
Hmm.
which is also sustainable because if anything that's cut to the demand of a customer, it's less dead stock. So
Hmm.
again, all technology can be used for good, and that's what it should be used for. So as long as technology is used for us to live better lives, to make sure technology is used, which is climate friendly, make sure technology is used, which is planet friendly, people friendly, then it's great use of technology.
Hmm.
It's like social media today. It's a great boon for so many, but it's a curse for so many. It depends on how much you allow technology to take over your life.
Hmm.
Today the phone has become such an integral part, and there's so much mental health issues because youngsters are on Instagram all the time. That's
Hmm.
when you allow technology to overtake you. But if you
Sure.
use technology as a tool to just further your career and say, now this is it, enough is enough, and now I need to keep this aside, I'm done for the day. So I think striking that middle path and making sure that technology doesn't overtake you is something we all have to be very mindful for the future.
Okay, so we have to be mindful of how we're using technology. It can obviously be channeled for the good, so we try to channelize in the right direction. What about smart tech? With these garments that can sort of heat up and cool, and then it changes colors. Do you see that coming through where they have a device that sort of you can control
I
how?
think it's great that you wear a garment. Again, that's a great sustainable option that you buy one t-shirt and you are, say, you've left your house in the morning, it's 25 degrees, and in the night you're going somewhere and it's 12 degrees or 8 degrees and it heats up. It's great.
You see that
It's
coming through in India?
Yeah, you don't have to buy a coat. I mean, there's a lot that's happening in technology, and like I said, there's a lot of change that will come, and all this change should be again for the good, where people buy less. So instead of owning five coats, you have that one garment which will, the temperature will keep changing according to the way you like it. For me, that's a win-win because then you're buying less clothes.
Okay. Okay,
So
fine. So you can sort of reuse one garment,
yeah,
multi-purpose the same.
anything that for me that's progress.
That's progress. Okay. Okay. I know you work very closely with lots of artisans. Where are you seeing the balance between technology and advancements coming in terms of manufacturing and the livelihoods of the artisans, and that balance shifting with more and more automation in terms of production and the handcrafting?
Yeah, okay, but this is my biggest fear, and this is something I really want to work passionately towards. So I work with a lot of artisans all across India who live in villages of India, and the mothers and the grandmothers are skilled artisans, and so are the daughters. They've learned the art and the
Mm,
craft, but they don't want to follow the craft now. They want to take up jobs. They want to work on laptops, which is all great. I think that they must learn how to use a laptop, and that's said. I've always said my dream is in a village where the handloom and the laptop sit next to each other and both are used correctly. But my fear is that handcraft in our country, probably after one generation is going to die out. And there are so many of our industries where the master craftsmen are just dwindling. I mean, I just got an email yesterday. There's one block printing family left in Jaipur who creates a certain style of blocks, and that's it. The last generation is left, and his son doesn't want to take over the
mm.
same job. So I think bringing back pride in our Indian craftsmanship, I think, is very important. Again, there I feel the consumer plays a very, very important role, where the consumer should put some of his her shopping money on buying something that's handcrafted, because it's our legacy, it's our culture, it's a huge way of providing economic income to women in villages, men and women in villages, and it's something that should just not die out. It's our legacy. So keeping handcraft alive is very, very important, especially in India. I mean, all over the world, but it's thriving in India, and it's important to keep that alive.
Okay, and how does one keep that alive? Is it the consumer who goes and says, "Hey, I want to purchase handcrafted"? Is it the designers who say, "Hey, we are going to support the community and make sure that we are working with them"? Where is it's again this? I'm constantly worried about this push and pull factor in fashion. Who is it led by?
It's led by the consumer.
Is
I'll
led
give
by.
you a simple example. I just took a break. I just went to Kashmir for the first time, and I'd never visited Kashmir ever. And it was a beautiful experience. It's such a beautiful state, beautiful land. I met artisans there. So Kashmir does a form of hand embroidery. Every young girl in Kashmir, when she's born, she's taught that. It's part of they're taught to do that. Every home does that embroidery. So there are two, three different crafts. There's Ari, there's Suzani, and everybody does it. But you go to the tourist shops, they're selling those traditional Kashmiri designs done by computers.
Hmm.
So you'll get a little top for like as cheap as 1,000 rupees, but it's embroidered by a computer. And next to it will be a garment which is painstakingly done by a Kashmiri artisan in by hand, which is obviously going to sell for maybe 3 to 4,000 rupees.
Mm,
And in front of me, the consumer chose the computer embroidered one because it was cheaper.
mm,
And I was trying to explain to her, I said, you're in Kashmir, you must support local Kashmir craft. Please buy the hand one. Do not buy the machine one. But sometimes economics and price plays a larger role.
mm.
So I, first of all, that's why I said to preserve the craft and culture in our country today is something that I would like to work towards, and I would request the consumer to support handcrafted and handmade.
Okay, okay, all right.
It's
Okay.
going to become a privilege of the rich to buy handcraft because handcraft is going to get more and more expensive.
So
And
the communities are dwindling, so the supply
the,
reduces, supply goes
yes,
down, pricing goes
yeah,
up.
yes, yes,
Okay, okay. Actually, it's kind of a vicious circle. So the consumer works backwards and say, hey, we want more. Then maybe there's more demand, and then the reverse economics of this can
can
also
happen
happen.
too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. I want to talk about your stores. The stores are beautiful. The stores are an experience. You know, from the minute you walk in, you're like, wow, it changes the air you're breathing. It changes the way you're feeling. You walk into the Kala Ghora store and you're like, oh my God, wow, where have I come? It's beautifully designed. And then there is this thrust of online retail where, people are buying rapidly online. So it was very interesting for me in the midst of this whole online retailing phase. You opened up the most exquisite stores. What is the thesis on online retail versus in-store retail going forward? The fact that you've invested in the stores is obviously an indicator that you do believe in in-store purchases. Do you see the in-store purchasing the online retailing? Where are you on this online versus in-person shopping, and where do you see this going in the future?
I think both are very, very important. It all for me, I need to make my consumer's life easier. For me, my consumer browses online and comes to the store and shops. There might be some times when she's busy, she's traveling, she's in another city where there is no Anita Dongre store. We're not in that many cities. I mean, in India, we're just in uh, 3 or 4 cities. I'm accessible to somebody sitting in Bangalore, in Chennai, where I don't have my stores, where she can buy online, and I'm accessible online for somebody to browse, to make up her mind when she comes to the store. And literally today we see that most young people have gone through your website online. They know exactly what they want to buy. They come to the store and say, show me this, this, this. It makes her shopping time, reduces her shopping time. So for me, both are extremely important and both must coexist. And of
Okay.
course, the store experience is the store experience for me. To come in and buy something that's handmade, handcrafted, high fashion, try it on, have that whole experience. That's the joy of shopping.
Okay.
That's the joy of buying fashion.
You see, that is the joy. Of course, it is a joy. It is a joy to step into your stores, absolutely. And you're saying they kind of feed into one another. You're saying
Yes.
you might see something online, go on, and you know what you want to buy in the store. You might see something in the store, not be ready at that point, but you might go home and then potentially make a
Yeah.
purchase on.
And for me, my stores, I would love for clients, and they do that to come and spend quite a few hours there, come and sip a tea of lemongrass tea, not to hurry up and shop, to do that at their own comfort.
Hmm.
I'm a
Okay.
big exponent of slow living.
Slow living, sort of more leisurely, enjoyable shopping
Yes. Yes.
experience.
So the stores have to, for me, serve as those great experience centers.
And you see that trend coming going forward as well. Do you see yourself opening more?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Online can never replace, not for handcrafted high fashion.
Okay. Okay.
Online is great if you're just like, there's a certain size of a white t-shirt that fits you, that you can just order online. But when you're buying fashion and you're buying handcrafted fashion and you're buying design, a store experience is important.
Okay. And you see that trend going forward as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about like COVID and the workspace. How did the pandemic affect how you work? Were you able to move to remote? How does design work, and how
Oh,
are
it
you
was so difficult.
so difficult? Okay.
It was terribly difficult because we're not like a software company where you can just move to home. I mean, ours is a touch feel job. Everybody has to come to the design center. We cut fabrics, we touch fabrics. Everything is done by hand in the design headquarters. So we were shut for months and months on end, and it was It was a really tough time, and I God hope we never have to go through that again ever.
So in your case, it's a very sort of in I won't call it office
Yes.
workshop. People need
Yeah,
to.
I work from my design headquarters in Navi Mumbai, where I'm speaking to you now. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful space. It's 90,000 square feet. It's next to these gorgeous green hills. It's really, really fortunate to be working in a space like that. And about 600 of us come together here every day, and we all come in here to create just beautiful clothes.
Okay, so it's very sort of physical. You don't see hybrid working. You don't see work from home.
No, not in
Okay,
fashion,
fashion.
Vibha. It's very being over here.
It's
Even today, if I design, I can't sit at home and design. For me, a design process is draping it on the mannequin, touching the fabric, drawing. It's all teamwork and it's all done together. We feed off each other's creative energies here.
okay.
It's really a team that comes together and builds the designs. There's so many hands at work.
Okay, so
And
very
then a lot of our embroideries go off to remote villages, then they come back, then they get, you know, the process of making high fashion clothes is so many steps to it and
okay,
so many people involved.
and so many people involved. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
not seeing any hybrid and work from home coming through in your case.
Not in fashion,
Not in
absolutely
fashion.
nothing.
Okay.
Everyone has to be here.
What about trends in terms of the designers you hire? Are you seeing a shift in terms of how they work, how they think in terms of the workforce of the future? Because the younger workforce is slowly coming into all our workspaces. Are you seeing any difference in terms of what they want, less working hours, more flexibility? Are you seeing any shifts? Because obviously there's been a massive generational shift between our grandparents, parents, and us. What are you seeing as trends in the next generation workforce?
The young girls I have working for me, they're just lovely, they're enthusiastic, creative. I mean the basics, they want the weekend off, which is now,
On the weekend
no,
completely off, right?
yeah, everybody doesn't, nobody works on Saturday, Sunday. Uh, they want a great work-life balance, which I think is important. And I think they've struck the right work-life balance, and I don't see any issues there. Where they use technology to earlier, 20 years ago, we used to only design with paper and pen. Today, everybody's designing on an iPad and using, some basic software. That's the only difference.
Okay. So you're not seeing a very demanding workforce. You're not seeing any major shift. You're seeing that
No,
work-life balance has come in a bigger way,
yeah,
and weekends are off.
absolutely. Weekends are off. We never in the head office. Nobody works on weekends. The
Head office
designers
nobody
don't.
works. Okay, okay. And are you seeing any sort of DEI influences in either the workspace in terms of, I mean, I think you're largely a female-led organization because you are leading by female, and then I think you recruit a lot of women in your organization. Are you seeing DEI coming in either in the workspace or even in the stores in terms of what you're designing and who you're designing for? Are you designing for like a larger LGBTQ plus community? Do you see that coming
Oh,
through?
of course, fashion has definitely become more inclusive, and that's a huge trend. It's becoming gender neutral, it's becoming inclusive. And these are great trends. I love what's happening,
Mhm.
size inclusive. So we've always been but an inclusive fashion house. We were the first brand in India when we started 25 years ago to have sizes in all our clothes.
Mhm.
When we started And 25 years ago, there was no brand in India that was offering sizes. Everybody was selling medium size. And we took the UK size chart and we created sizes right from size 6 to size 20. So
Mhm.
the DNA of our fashion house has been, we've been size inclusive always. It's a big trend and a big buzzword today, but for us, it's been a way of life.
Okay.
It's been
Okay.
the way
Wow.
we think right from
Okay.
the beginning.
It's okay. So it's already been sort of it's part of your ethos already, and going forward
Absolutely.
also, you feel like this trend will continue at least in your fashion
Yeah.
house.
Has to.
It has to continue. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, terrific. Okay, last section, and then we'll start tapering this off, is on skill building. So you hire a lot of young girls, and you're working with sort of the next generation. If you had to suggest skilling in terms of how should they be future ready, if they want to be fashion designers, what are some of the skills that you advocate for young people to become future ready?
Just for the design community, you say, or
Design,
just
you can say
anybody?
design, business, or however you want to approach it.
I think about today when I look at young people around me, I think today the biggest problem India and the world is facing is mental health issues.
Mhm.
I think we are taught all the subjects when we enter school as children. You're academically taught everything, but no one's taught the skills of living life well. And I think we need to teach life coaching. You need more life coaches even in school. Today, you have the term life coach, and you'll probably take on a life coach or you take on a counselor much later in life if you have an issue. But I think this needs to be inculcated in our schools and colleges, maybe right from as early as even preschool. Because if there's one issue that's facing the young today, it's a mental health issue because of the advent of so much of social media and so much of technology.
Mhm.
Somewhere the mind is not at peace, and I think it's so important to not just have the skills what you need in your job, but to
Mhm.
have to be emotionally strong, to have great emotional skills, to have great interpersonal skills. Most of the kids today are single kids with no siblings. They
Mhm.
were not brought up with joint families like we were brought. So how to work in a team, I think those are the skills that today need to be taught in schools and colleges.
Mhm. Okay. So it sounds like very human skills. Everything you're saying, collaboration, emotional,
Yeah.
teamwork. Okay. A lot of human skill set. If
Yeah, I think they lack that. I think this generation lacks that.
you feel that they
I
lack
would
that,
just say, yeah, life skills, just emotional, just to be emotionally strong, to be mentally strong.
okay.
Because there's so much change that's going to come in society, in everything, in our culture, in the way we are in the next 10 to 20 years. Is the young generation, is the youth prepared for that change? You got to be mentally, emotionally super strong. And I think as parents and as teachers and as educational institutions, we need to start preparing our kids. And I don't think the kids are well prepared. We're teaching them everything. They're learning software, they're learning all of that, but I don't think they're learning emotional skills.
Okay. So you would you advocate that in terms of like additions to the curriculum in both schools, colleges,
Absolutely. And we should start as young as possible.
to start as young
Just
as
life skills, yeah.
okay. If someone wants to train to become a fashion designer, would you recommend they go to fashion school? Is there any value in studying fashion, or is there another school, the school of life that teaches you how to become a good
Oh,
designer?
no, no, no. What a fashion school gives you, nothing can replace what a fashion school gives you. You
Okay.
absolutely, if you want to become a designer, if you can afford to, please get yourself into a good fashion school because that education is, I mean, you can't match that. You can't learn that. You could probably, if you cannot afford to, you can take up a job and learn. But what a fashion school will teach you, I think, is a great foundation to have.
Okay. So you're a believer in in formal
Yes,
education, at
yes.
least in
I
terms
am definitely a believer. Just
in,
the thrill of going to school, Biba. Just the thrill of having teachers to teach you. You must go with that learning mind, and that's where you learn. Unless if you can't afford it, and yes, you take up a job and you learn on the job also, yes. But if you can afford to, please go to a good fashion school, spend your 4 years, 5 years, create your foundation, and then come into the industry.
okay. So
I think the joy of being a student and learning is unsurpassable.
okay. The joy of learning and being a student. Okay. Sounds like you're very much a student for life. It sounds like you're doing you're still putting
Yeah,
your
I never stop learning.
never stop learning.
Learning should never stop.
Yeah, you told me you went to Kashmir on a break, and then you also said that you went and visited the Karigars and you saw the RE workers. So,
Yeah, yeah. My whole office laughed at that because they said you did a digital detox, so I didn't touch my phone for 5 days. But I did find time to meet them.
you still found time to continue your learning. Okay, terrific.
Yeah,
All right, I think we'll end on that note because it's a beautiful high point to leave the conversation on. Be a continual learner. Great advice. And I also love the part about all the emotional skills that you emphasized because in the new world with technology, robots, AI taking over, I think really to keep this human supremacy over technology, if we can
yeah.
keep our emotional human skills alive, then hopefully we will still have that one leg up for the rest of our lives and that will really
Yeah,
keep the
I think strengthening our mind and intellect is should be the number one goal.
strengthening mind and intellect. Okay, terrific. All right. Thank you, Anita Dongre, for doing this.
Thank you,
Great
Vibha.
conversation. Lots of learning as always. Much appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.